In this life, there is something that always makes us pause for a moment and think. Something working behind the scenes. Something unseen, unpredictable, and beyond our control. Many people call it coincidence. Some call it fate. Others call it destiny. But deep down inside, we know it is the way God works. Let's take a look at the small things happening in our daily lives. Can we truly avoid getting sick? We can eat healthy, exercise, sleep well. We can do everything we think is right. Yet in the end, our bodies still catch colds, fevers, coughs, tiny illnesses we simply cannot avoid. And that tells us one very clear truth. We can never fully control anything. Even something as simple as dust getting into our eyes. We can't stop that. Who has never experienced it? You're just walking or sitting peacefully, and suddenly a tiny speck enters your eye and makes you cry for a moment. If something so small is unavoidable, what about the bigger things in life? We think we know our risks. For example, if you work in front of a computer every day, you assume your biggest danger is eye strain or back pain. But then suddenly, you get piriformis syndrome, something you never even imagined. That alone shows us life doesn't follow our plans. God works in spaces we don't notice. Small events often redirect our entire path. Imagine you plan to leave for work early one morning. Everything is ready. But suddenly, the motorcycle won't start. A button pops off your shirt, or you simply can't find your keys. You end up leaving 5 minutes later than usual. On the way, you pass by an accident, and you realize, if I had left on time, that could have been me. Is that a coincidence? Or God arranging your steps? Sometimes the little disruptions of the day are actually huge protections we never saw. God works through small moments, even those we consider insignificant. Someone loses their job and feels their world is falling apart. But months later, they find a much better one. Someone falls ill and is forced to rest. Only then do they see what they had been neglecting. Family, time, peace. Sometimes God stops us, not to break us, but to redirect us. Sometimes sickness doesn't make us weaker. It opens our eyes to what truly matters. But God does not only work through small things. Sometimes He works through moments that shake our entire world. There are people whose lives look perfect. A good career, a happy family, stable health. Everything seems fine, as if they are in complete control. But in 1 second, everything changes. A phone call, a message, a sudden event, and life collapses. They feel God is knocking them down. They cry, "Why, God? Why now? Why me?" But very often, in that fragile moment, God is working the strongest. There's a beautiful saying, God breaks us at the precise point where He intends to rebuild us more beautifully. A father who always works, rarely comes home, always promises his children time later, believing he's doing the right thing for their future. But one day, he falls seriously ill. Not a minor illness, but one that forces him to stay in bed. And for the first time, he sees his children sitting beside him, holding his hand, saying, "Dad, we don't need you to be perfect. We just need you to be here," he cries. Because God had been giving him small reminders for years, but he never listened. Until God said, "I'm stopping you here so you can see what really matters." There is also someone whose life feels completely shattered. Problems come one after another, a mental breakdown, a broken relationship, savings depleted, job lost. They feel abandoned by God. But in truth, God is pulling them closer. One night, in utter desperation, they whisper, "God, I can't do this anymore." And at that exact moment, when they stop trying to control their own life, God begins to take over. Doors open, opportunities appear from nowhere, help comes from people they never knew. Because when we surrender, it doesn't mean we're defeated. Sometimes, that is the moment God begins something new. God does not always answer in the way we expect. We ask for strength. He gives challenges. We ask for wisdom. He gives problems. We ask for happiness. He gives loss. We ask for a straight path. He gives curves. Those curves make us angry, sad, frustrated. But those very curves are how God protects us from dangers we never saw. We see today. God sees our entire life. And often, God changes a person's life through the smallest things. A flat tire, a lost signal, a stalled engine, a sudden rain, a delayed order, a dropped glass. We think those are annoyances, but maybe they're God's way of steering us away from something far worse. It is His way of saying, "Not that path. Follow me." God works in silence, but His results are unmistakable. He doesn't always send loud signs. He doesn't always use thunderous moments. Sometimes He uses a breeze, a speck of dust, time, tears, and simple everyday events. And from all of that, He arranges exactly what we need. At the end of our journey, when we look back, we finally understand, oh, so that's what it meant. Because through it all, God never left. God never made a mistake. And God never stopped working in our lives, even when we couldn't see Him.